Welcome back to the Frugal Hacker channel, your ultimate guide to personal finance, resource optimization, and cutting through the noise of modern consumer economics. I am your host, and today, we are tackling a question that completely infuriates the average American every time they pull up to the pump. If the United States is producing more oil than ever before, and we are supposedly energy independent, why does it still cost a fortune to fill up your tank? The truth is, everything you think you know about gas prices is probably wrong. It is not local gas station owners' price gouging you, and simply drilling more domestic oil won't magically lower your cost at the pump. Today, we are going to dive deep into the incredibly complex, globalized, and highly regulated machinery that dictates the price of your commute. Then, I am going to share some high-impact, frugal hacks to sever your reliance on this volatile system once and for all. Let's get hacking. When you pay for a gallon of gas, you aren't just paying for the liquid. You are paying for a multi-layered global supply chain. According to data from the United States Energy Information Administration, the retail price of gasoline is broken down into four main components. Crude oil costs make up between 51% and 61% of the price. Refining takes up 14% to 21%. Federal and state taxes account for 14% to 18%. And distribution and marketing make up the final 8% to 11%. Because crude oil is the single largest cost driver, pump prices maintain an incredibly high correlation with global crude oil benchmarks, like West Texas Intermediate and Brent crude. In fact, since 2020, global crude oil price fluctuations have explained over 90% of the quarterly variation in retail gasoline prices. Here is where the contrarian reality kicks in. Oil is a fungible commodity traded on integrated global exchanges, meaning prices are established by aggregate global supply and demand, not local production. It does not matter if your neighbor struck oil in their backyard. The price you pay is tied to what someone in Europe, India, or China is willing to pay. This is why geopolitical tensions thousands of miles away empty your wallet. Take the Strait of Hormuz, a critical global choke point in the Middle East. Roughly 20% of global petroleum liquids pass through this single waterway. When conflicts flare up or shipping lanes are threatened in the region, a geopolitical risk premium is instantly baked into the global price. You aren't just paying for oil, you are paying for global uncertainty and fear. Many people ask, why can't the United States government just force oil companies to keep domestic prices static during a crisis? We tried that in the 1970s. In 1971, President Nixon imposed price controls in an attempt to curb inflation. When the 1973 Arab oil embargo hit, these artificial price caps prevented the market from self-correcting. The result was an absolute disaster: severe physical shortages, forced rationing, and multi-mile queues at gas stations. Suppressing price signals artificially encourages consumption while destroying the incentive for companies to produce more, which simply locks in a shortage. And if you are blaming the local gas station owner for price gouging, stop. Less than 1% of convenience stores selling gasoline are actually owned by major oil companies. The vast majority are independent small businesses operating on incredibly thin margins. The average gross markup on a gallon of gas is about 35 to 40 cents, but after factoring in massive credit card swipe fees, labor, utilities, and maintenance, the net profit is often just pennies per gallon. When wholesale prices spike, retailers often absorb the cost temporarily to avoid losing price-sensitive customers, meaning their margins actually shrink during a crisis. So, if we are pumping record amounts of oil out of places like the Permian Basin in Texas and the Bakken region in North Dakota, why aren't we swimming in cheap gasoline? Because of what industry insiders call the Slate mismatch. Crude oil is not all the same. The United States shale revolution primarily extracts light, sweet crude, which has a low density and low sulfur content. However, the vast majority of our massive, complex refineries located on the United States Gulf Coast were built decades ago, back when we assumed we would rely on importing cheap, heavy, sour crude from countries like Venezuela, Mexico, and Canada. Our refineries spent billions installing heavy conversion units like hydrocrackers and cokers to process that dirty, heavy crude. If you try to run pure light, sweet domestic shale oil through these legacy refineries, it causes distillation imbalances, bottlenecks the system, and reduces profitability. Therefore, the United States operates a bizarre two-way trade. We export our premium light sweet crude to foreign countries whose refineries are optimized for it, while we import cheaper, heavy sour crude to keep our specialized Gulf Coast refineries running at full capacity. Why not just build new refineries tailored for domestic oil? Because the United States has not built an entirely new, grassroots refining facility since 1976. Refineries cost billions to build and take up to 30 years to pay off. Between immense regulatory hurdles and the looming political push to transition away from fossil fuels, nobody wants to risk that kind of capital. But the bottleneck gets worse when the gasoline leaves the refinery, thanks to a 1920 protectionist maritime law called the Jones Act. The Jones Act mandates that any goods shipped by water between two United States ports must be transported on vessels that are built in the United States, registered under the United States flag, and owned and crewed by at least 75% American citizens. Because United States shipbuilding has become completely uncompetitive, a domestically built product tanker costs roughly $220 million, nearly 4 to 5 times more than an Asian-built vessel, and costs $8 million more per year to operate. Furthermore, out of roughly 7,500 oil tankers worldwide, only 54 comply with the Jones Act, and only 43 of those are configured to transport refined fuels. This artificial scarcity makes domestic shipping astronomically expensive, costing the United States economy an estimated $200 million a year in extra freight costs. It is so expensive that California often finds it 60% cheaper to import gasoline all the way from Singapore rather than shipping it from the United States Gulf Coast. The East Coast is also forced to import foreign fuel, acting as a structural tax that burdens East Coast energy consumers by an estimated $769 million annually. In short, the Jones Act forces United States gasoline to leave the country just so it can affordably move within it. Finally, we cannot ignore environmental fragmentation. Under the Clean Air Act of 1990, the EPA mandates that metropolitan areas with poor air quality switch to a summer blend of gasoline. In the winter, gasoline is blended with cheap, highly volatile butane to help engines start in the cold, but in the summer, this high volatility leads to smog and ground-level ozone. To comply, refiners must remove the butane and replace it with costlier components, which lengthens processing times, reduces the per-barrel yield, and adds up to 15 cents per gallon in refining costs. Furthermore, state and municipal regulations have fragmented the United States into dozens of isolated boutique fuel markets. If a refinery goes down in California, which has the strictest fuel and tax standards, pushing state taxes and fees to a staggering 70.9 cents per gallon, they cannot simply truck in surplus gas from Nevada, because it is illegal to sell that specific blend there. This isolation guarantees sudden, massive price spikes. Alright, frugal hackers. Now you understand that the game is rigged by global geopolitics, legacy infrastructure, maritime protectionism, and fragmented environmental laws. The cavalry is not coming to save your wallet. To win, you have to optimize your own resource consumption and reduce your exposure to this volatile system. Here are the actionable, high-impact hacks the average consumer needs to deploy right now. Hack number 1. Master the physics of fuel economy. The easiest way to beat the pump is to stop burning gas needlessly. We aren't just talking about buying a smaller car. We are talking about optimizing how you operate the machine. According to the United States Department of Energy, speeding up and slowing down constantly is a massive drain. Jackrabbit starts consume twice the fuel as gradual acceleration. Pace your driving and maintain a constant speed. Slow down on the highway. As a general rule of thumb, every 5 miles per hour you drive over 50 miles per hour is the economic equivalent of paying an additional 20 to 30 cents more per gallon at the pump. Keep your air filters clean and make sure your tires are properly inflated. Underinflated tires alone rob you of vital fuel efficiency. And empty your trunk. Reducing dead weight directly increases fuel efficiency. Finally, manage your climate control. Limiting your air conditioner use around town can improve fuel economy significantly, though keep in mind that at highway speeds, modern AC units create less aerodynamic drag than driving with your windows down. Hack number 2. Exploit digital tools and rewards programs. To truly be a frugal hacker, you must treat buying gas as a strategic transaction. Never buy gas blindly at the station closest to the highway exit. Those stations charge a premium for convenience. Use crowdsourced fuel pricing apps to map your route and find the cheapest tier of gas in your zip code. Combine these digital tools with cashback optimization. Utilize a dedicated credit card that offers 3% to 5% cashback strictly on fuel purchases, and stack that with loyalty programs offered by the major gas brands. By treating fuel as an optimized spending category, you can artificially engineer your own discount against rising global prices. Hack number 3. Decouple from the global oil market entirely. The ultimate frugal hack is removing yourself from the geopolitical oil circus completely. Because electric vehicles, or EVs, run on electricity, they are completely immune to the seasonal gasoline reformulation costs and global crude volatility. Over the first 7 years of ownership, EV owners can save upwards of $4,700 in fuel savings alone compared to equivalent gas vehicles. Now, let's be real. Transitioning to an EV or upgrading your home requires an upfront capital investment, but the long-term operational math is where the true hacking happens. To achieve absolute energy sovereignty, you want to decouple from utility grid rate fluctuations as well. You can achieve this by pairing your EV with a residential rooftop solar system and home battery storage. By capturing and storing your own clean energy, you are no longer a victim to what OPEC decides, what happens in the Strait of Hormuz, or what the Jones Act dictates for domestic shipping. Energy independence on a national level is largely a political buzzword. As long as our fuel requires complex global crude pricing, ancient Gulf Coast refineries, multi-million-dollar shipping protectionism, and hyper-fragmented environmental regulations, your local pump price will remain at the mercy of the world stage. But as a frugal hacker, you don't have to play their game. By optimizing your vehicle's physical efficiency, leveraging digital finance tools, and transitioning your infrastructure towards solar and electrification, you take the power back into your own hands. Download our free guide, which will help you save money now and maybe in the future. Link is in the description. If this deep dive helped you understand the real mechanics of the global energy bottleneck, smash that like button, subscribe for more hardcore resource optimization, and let me know in the comments what frugal hacks you are using to beat the pump. Until next time, keep hacking the system.